On this week's edition of the Stony Brook News, Marvel fans on Long Island mourn the loss of Stan Lee.
The new federal exercise guidelines say children should start exercising at the age of 3.
We'll also be looking at how local Native Americans are celebrating their heritage.
Food banks on Long Island gear up for Thanksgiving.
And the Stony Brook Africana Studies Department celebrates its anniversary.
All that and more on this week's edition of the Stony Brook News.
Good afternoon and welcome to this week's edition of the Stony Brook News. I'm Nick Musameche.
And I'm Christian Cangiano.
Marvel comic fans around the world were crushed to hear about the passing of Stan Lee. Lee was the creative mind behind multiple iconic heroes like Spider-Man, Black Panther, and my personal favorites, the Avengers. Friends and family held a private funeral for Lee yesterday, while Long Island comic fans paid a tribute to Lee in their own way. Our reporter Tristan Manaloto has more.
Marvel Comics icon Stan Lee passed away 1 week ago. He was 95 years old. The legendary writer, editor, and publisher inspired generations of comic book fans. Last Thursday, the Stony Brook Holiday Inn Express hosted a candlelight vigil to commemorate this real-life superhero.
It's a celebration of his life. So Stan Lee was an incredible person, larger-than-life figure here on Long Island, and he is, without question, a mover and shaker on Long Island. Led a major movement amongst pop culture with his comics.
Fans attending the event brought to life some of Lee's most iconic superheroes by dressing up as some of their favorite comic book characters.
I'm Captain America, and I'm here today to pay respects to Stan Lee, who passed away this week, and here to celebrate his life and his legacy and his impact in the comic book world.
Fans were also able to watch screenings of Marvel movies on all the hotel's televisions, and they loved seeing their favorite Stan Lee character brought to life on the big screen.
He gave the Avengers, made them, humans, even though they had powers. So he proved that they have real issues, with problems and things like that, in addition to being superheroes.
This reporter is here to celebrate Stan Lee's life and how his iconic characters will continue to inspire Long Islanders for generations. And in his words, you don't need a cape or a costume for you to be a superhero. For Stony Brook News, I'm Tristan Manaloto.
And I'm Jim, Spider-Man, be happy.
Do you remember what you were doing when you were 3 years old? Did you go outside and play, get plenty of physical activity? New federal exercise guidelines say that children should begin moving and exercise daily at the age of 3. Our reporter, Stephanie Uvienko, has more.
It's official. The Department of Health and Human Services is telling us to sit less and to move more, a piece of advice we already know. But as of Monday, the new federal exercise guidelines recommend that kids between the ages of 3 and 6 should be physically active.
They need very free-form play. And with that sort of active movement, that's where the exercise will come in. It's not like an adult needing to go to a gym.
The health guidelines state that kids should be moving around for about 3 hours per day. It helps strengthen their muscles and bones and improve cognition.
It looks like it's just child's play, but it's actually building neuron connections in the brain that then help you, let's say when you go to master something like playing tennis or going snowboarding, because you've learned the balance skills or just the hand-eye coordination in a play-like environment.
Kids do physically develop at different rates, but usually by the age of 3, they have a lot more coordination and control of their bodies. It also doesn't hurt to introduce movement as early as possible.
The older they are, it's harder to introduce movement to something they're not used to having as part of their day. If they're used to sitting in front of screens or computers or TVs, and then we say, okay, get up and move now, they don't have the incentive because they don't have the experience.
So just get your kids on their feet. They can play pretend, make up words, or paint with their hands. Teachers at the Stony Brook Child Care change the environment for their students.
They learn by taking information in through their body. So it's important for us to allow them to do what developmentally is appropriate for them.
So hop off the couch and do a puzzle, or have a little dance party in your pajamas. I know this reporter is going to try her best to get off Netflix.
Stephanie, go play!
I'll be right with you guys. For Stony Brook News, this is Stephanie Uvienko. Let's go!
So Christian, that snowstorm took me by surprise last week. I know my commute was hell. How about yours?
After I got off the train in Mineola, I hopped on the N24 bus, and a trip that usually takes me a half hour took me an hour and a half.
You know, we actually have some interesting video of our reporter Josh Farber using skis to get around campus.
I hope this Thursday is better. Let's check in with our weather reporter Eliza Cosme to find out if we'll be getting any more surprises this Thanksgiving week. Eliza?
Thanks, Christian. No surprises this week. Right now it's 51 degrees on the Academic Mall. Kind of hard to believe that it was snowing last week. If we look at our hour-by-hour forecast, we can see that the nice weather will stay throughout the day, just dipping down to 44 degrees at the end of the night. If we look at our 7-day forecast, we can see that there will be some rain on Tuesday. Your drive home on Wednesday will be pretty nice, but then Thursday, Thanksgiving, it's going to drop down to 28 degrees, so I hope that turkey keeps you warm. Weekend's not too bad, just some rain on Sunday, so keep dry, Seawolves. Back to you guys.
Native Americans played a primary role in the story of Thanksgiving. November is Native American Heritage Month. Our reporter, Meng Yuan, looks at how Long Island's local Native American population is celebrating.
It's Native American Heritage Month at Stony Brook University, where only 0.4% of the student body is made up of Native American students. Out of 26,265 total students, there are only 18 undergraduates and 12 graduates. Fortunately, Stony Brook boasts a real expert in the library. Jay Leveson often tells Native American history and culture behind a piece of artwork.
So either people think that we're just drug dealers and violent people, but we're just human beings like everybody else.
Leveson is of Mohawk descent. He helped create the Native American Student Organization in Stony Brook at 2015. But the organization was struggling, and it was dissolved at the beginning of this year.
Unfortunately, it was really difficult to gather members and keep people interested.
One of the prime ways to return heritage is to keep a food culture alive and flowing. This year, Stony Brook offers traditional Native American beans and corn cake to explain their tradition.
Food is our medicine, so it heals us, it sustains us, it nurtures us. But food is also who we are. And what we eat is representational of not only our culture, but our identity.
The program, like food sampling, also gives a way for Native American students like Roland to learn more about their original backgrounds.
Not just for other people who don't really are familiar with the culture, but also for us, the new generation that has steered so far away from our traditions.
One thing this reporter learns from the Heritage Month is tomato is not from Italy, but from Native Americans. For Stony Brook News, I'm Meng Yuan.
Research from the University of Southern California revealed some troubling statistics about Stony Brook's black student community, or lack thereof. This comes at the same time as Stony Brook's Africana Studies Department celebrated its 50th anniversary. Our reporter Guneet Singh has more.
The Chicago riots, the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the Civil Rights Act. 1968 was also the year of another major event at our very own university, the creation of the Africana Studies Department. The program aims to teach students from a non-Western perspective, which differs from the typical European-centric liberal arts programs.
Sometimes I feel like the curriculum ostracize or exclude, and sometimes not intentionally, but unintentionally excludes people of color.
To celebrate its anniversary, the Africana Studies Department held events last week in honor of Amiri Baraka, a poet, writer, and former professor.
And since we are here, we deserve what every other American deserves at the same time. And so our struggle for democracy is a struggle to be treated as citizens in this society.
This celebration comes at a crucial time. The University of Southern California's Race and Equity Center released a study about black students at public universities. Stony Brook University received an F in representation equity.
For students from underrepresented communities to go into classrooms and very rarely see themselves represented at the podium, right? Very rarely see faculty members who look like them. I'm sure it must be discouraging. I'm sure It must be frustrating.
Only 6.5% of the students on campus are black, compared to 28.1% at SUNY Old Westbury, another Long Island-based school.
Because it's a state school, so you're going to get people from all walks of life, but diversity doesn't necessarily means equality.
As Dr. Amiri Baraka once said, thought is greater than art. The Africana Studies Department aims to change the way students think and create a more inclusive environment where students feel represented. For Stony Brook News, I'm Guneet Singh.
This Thursday, families across the country will be gathering around tables and TVs for a hallowed American tradition, football. Who are you rooting for on Thursday, Nick?
Well, my Giants aren't playing this Thursday, but I'm definitely going to be rooting for the players on my fantasy football team. In the meantime, let's take a look back and let's see how our local Stony Brook teams did this week with our sports reporter, Caitlin Martin. Caitlin?
Thanks, Nick. The pressure was on last Saturday when the Stony Brook football team played UAlbany in the 4th annual Battle for the Golden Apple. The Seawolves suffered a heartbreaking defeat, losing 25-23 to Albany's Great Danes in the very last second of the game. SBU took the lead for the first time in the game with 17 seconds left in the 4th quarter when senior quarterback Jill Carbone found wide receiver Julius Wingate in the end zone from 41 yards away, bringing the score to 23-22. But the Great Danes got to attempt a 48-yard field goal, which bounced off and over the crossbar just as time ran out, snatching victory right out from Stony Brook. The women's volleyball team also played UAlbany last weekend, and their game produced a much happier result. The team won the America East Championship for the 2nd year in a row after defeating Albany in a 5-set battle in the championship game. 3 players, Emily Costello, Leanne Sakowitz, and Kiani Kirstetter, were named to the All-Championship team. This game marks the 17th victory in a row for the women's volleyball team and sends them on their way to the NCAA volleyball tournament. Looking ahead, 3 NFL games are scheduled for Thanksgiving Day. The first will be the Chicago Bears versus the Detroit Lions. The next game will be a traditional battle between the Washington Redskins and the Dallas Cowboys. The final game of the day will be between division rivals, the Atlanta Falcons and New Orleans Saints. It looks like Thanksgiving is shaping up to be an exciting day for the NFL, if not for the turkeys. That's all we have for sports. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Caitlin. In the spirit of Thanksgiving, Long Island food pantries are prepping for the holiday. Colin Connectal has more on the story.
What comes to mind when you think of Thanksgiving? A turkey dinner, cranberry sauce, mashed potatoes. It's a season of festivities and feasts, but these are luxuries not everyone in our community can enjoy. Defined as having unreliable access to sufficient, affordable, and nutritious food, food insecurity impacts 11.2% of American households. Even after continuous decline over the last 7 years, the problem continues despite the U.S. being in one of the longest periods of economic growth.
We live in a community where we have probably some of the wealthiest zip codes in the country, and yet 1 in every 10 Long Islanders is struggling with food insecurity. Perhaps it's children that sit next to our kids in school or relatives of ours.
While Nassau and Suffolk are among the wealthiest 3% of counties in the U.S., a declining middle class has led to 1 in 4 Long Island households earning less than $46,000 a year. And many of those who need help may not be considered in poverty.
When you're struggling with food insecurity, this isn't something that you typically talk about or tell people about. And so it's one of those hidden things. But people often are trading buying food for themselves or buying medicine or paying for transportation.
Partnering with Bethpage Federal Credit Union, Island Harvest hosted the largest one-day food drive on Long Island last Friday. Often relying on volunteers to operate, food banks help provide nutritious food year-round.
My job out here today is to make sure that families are fed on Long Island, and we have fun doing it.
Food banks don't just help provide food, but also try to address the underlying problems. Island Harvest, for example, also provides help accessing federal food assistance, teaches gardening to supplement meals, and provides job training to improve household income. Food drives like Island Harvest Bethpage Turkey Drive help ensure they get enough donations to last throughout the year. While food drives reach their peak during the holiday season, you can donate year-round at places like the Stony Brook Food Pantry. For Stony Brook News, I'm Colin Connectal.
It really makes you think how lucky we are to have food on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, absolutely, Christian. Well, that's all we have time for on this week's edition of the Stony Brook News. I'm Nick Musumeci.
And I'm Christian Cangiano. Have a great break and a happy Thanksgiving, Seawolves.